Let's bring in Florida Republican Senator Marco Rubio. He's a member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Senator, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning. I see Brian still has the best agent. How many days off does this guy have in his contract?
I mean, right? Come on.
Plenty.
I gotta hire that guy.
He's on assignment. He's
always
working.
Okay.
So, Senator, I'm sure you've heard those stories. You've seen the videos where it appears like Putin's hands are shaking and he's got to grab a chair and stuff like that. What are you being told about the Russian leader's health?
Well, I mean, I haven't been told anything I can share with you other than some pretty obvious observations. The guy's older, right? Second, the war is not going well. I mean, the reality of it is they've probably lost more soldiers. They've probably lost 2 times as many soldiers already than they lost in Afghanistan the entire time of the Afghanistan invasion during the Soviet Union. Probably degraded their military forces by 20 or 30%. They've had high failure rates. Remember all that money they spent on the military? Their missiles have misfired. Some of them never went off. Some of them hit the wrong target. I mean, it's just gone poorly, right? I mean, if he was an American president right now, he'd be, impeached, or at least, they'd be invoking all kinds of constitutional provisions to get rid of him. So it hasn't gone well, and certainly he knows the truth about it, and eventually that's going to impact somebody. I do think his risk calculus is what's different, and that's what we should. I don't think he's like the way we would describe insane in the normal sense. I think this is a guy who feels like he's got everything to gain at this point, and losing a war would oust him from power, which is something he can never allow to happen.
Yeah, let's talk about the border now, because DHS has outlined this plan to secure our border, they say, after Title 42 is lifted. The plans include increasing resources, personnel, transportation, medical support facilities to support border operations, more agents, more personnel. What's your reaction to that? Is that enough?
It's a joke. It's a joke. The border's been overrun. It's as simple as that. And the reason why is because this administration is listening to radical left-wing activists that are basically arguing for an open border. They're going to talk about the legal process and all that, but they basically believe, there is this group of people out there that basically believe that people should be allowed to live wherever they want, in any country they want. They should be able to come across the border, and when they do, they should receive benefits from the government, benefits that people that have worked here their whole lives don't get. And so they'll say, well, we're not doing that. But if you notice, one of the 6 points that he lays out is they're going to give a bunch of money to non-government organizations. What do those non-government organizations do? They buy people plane tickets, they give them cash assistance, they give them, in essence, you're just transferring government money into the hands of a not-government entity so they can give benefits to people. But we have an overrun border, and we are luring people to come here. Let me just say this thing. This is not about immigration. We admit 1 million people a year into this country who get green cards. That's the most generous immigration program on the planet, and we've done that for decades. This is about an overrun border where people and drugs, fentanyl, is flowing into our cities, flooding into our cities, and this administration is encouraging it. They don't want to do anything about it. And the last point about the border guards, it wasn't that long ago they were telling us border guards were whipping people. Remember that? The President of the United States. Well, of course, that turned out not to be true. Where's the apology? Who wants to be a border agent right now, knowing the President, if something goes wrong, is going to come after you or say you don't work for them, like they did about the gentleman that lost his life in Texas?
Yeah, and Senator, they barely acknowledge what happened to that Texas National Guard member, instead saying he's a state employee, about as callous as you can imagine.
Absolutely.
I've got one more question for you, though, as well, Senator, I guess on behalf of Brian Kilmeade. You have an op-ed at foxbusiness.com, and the title is "China's COVID Lockdowns Will Create a New Supply Chain Crisis." We're feeling the pinch on inflation. The supply chain crisis really never rectified it. You're saying it could get even worse?
This will be the worst. I mean, Shanghai is the world's busiest port and export facility. I mean, and I think what this is a reminder of is something I've been talking about since 2019, before the pandemic. We buy too much stuff from China. We've got to stop doing that. Buy it from other places, make it in America. But you see how Russia's cutting off Poland from natural gas? That's what they'll do to us on a host of things, including medicine. We depend too much on China. We have to stop doing that and start making more things here in America.
And that's one of the reasons why the stock market sold off yesterday as it did, worries about what's going on in China. Senator, thank you very much for joining us live from Capitol Hill.
Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet.